Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, finally time for me to once again talk about the Sonic movies. I did this recently, I'd say, but I just feel like talking about them again because I think I have just one. This should be my final word on these movies until we get some big news updates. But so what I want to talk about today is the inconsistency of these films because I have discussed the first two films before, and yeah, I did do a review of the third movie when it came out. And I think if you're a regular viewer, you should know how I feel about this. I mean, just look at the thumbnail and the picture on screen right now. First movie, mediocre. Second, terrible. Third, really good. So I just want to go through each film and just try to understand why are each of them what I think of them, and really how inconsistent this trilogy is, because this trilogy had the exact same director throughout every single film, and with the exception of an extra guy being added for the third film, the exact same screenwriters, same composers, same actors. Just so how could something that should be so coherent end up being so? Because thematically, they're also pretty consistent, I say. Which I mean, the second one doesn't really have many themes, but even despite all that, they're still just really inconsistent in quality. So without further ado, let's dive on in. So the first movie is pretty mediocre. It's a 5 out of 10. I remember seeing this in theaters and I really enjoyed it. Of course, I wasn't really that much of a Sonic fan yet either. Then when I saw it again after hating the second movie, I just thought this was super average. But I won't really dive into why I think so. I mean, I'm not going to do a full breakdown or anything or a full review, but I just want to say that for one, as I'm sure everyone's talked about by now, this movie has nothing to do with Sonic. It has a guy that looks like Sonic and is named that, but he doesn't really act like Sonic. Yeah, you got Jim Carrey actually acting like Robotnik, which he sure doesn't in the sequels, but he doesn't really look anything like the character. And you know what? As I used to say, they should have done first movie be kind of. I used to think these should all be animated, which I still stand by. They should have made these animated, but I used to think that no, the first one should basically be what the second movie was, where it's Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles with some changes, of course. The second movie should be Shadow. The third movie should be Silver, and now I'm thinking that that's just no. I think just focusing on Sonic may have actually been a smart idea. The problem lies in the execution. For one, yeah, Sonic just doesn't really act like Sonic. And while it's not necessarily a bad thing, I'm open to a different interpretation. When your character is just kind of annoying, I just don't care about him. I remember I saw this video once from the Sasso Studios animations people. You might have seen some of their animations. They did a video called "Why Movie Sonic is Not a Good Hero." It's been a while since I saw that video, so I can't really remember everything they said, but remember they were basically talking about how in the first movie, Sonic kind of deceives or manipulates Tom into taking him to San Francisco so he can get his rings back. And yeah, he kind of does, but he just regularly gets him in trouble and doesn't really seem to care that much. But then you also just got stuff, but overall that wouldn't be too bad. I think, I mean, the movie still has good things in it. The special effects are really good, but not only is the movie just not really that funny, and it's pretty comedically focused, and it's also just it feels a little too generic. And I talked about Robotnik in the movie. If they had just made him look like Robotnik, that would be a really good adaptation of the character, but he doesn't, which is just really annoying. And overall, this movie's just it's just there's nothing really that interesting about it. When I watch it, I don't really get that excited with the exception of the post-credit scenes. And then of course there's the music, which is just so dull. It just has no energy to it whatsoever. Even though this is a Sonic movie, it just does not sound like Sonic at all. Back to those post-credit scenes, by the way, yeah. I remember being in the theater. Second day the movie was out, by the way. Everyone was sitting there watching those post-credit scenes. We were all so excited. Everyone was cheering and all that. Like when Tails showed up at the end, and they got that little tease of an Eggman trying to make his return. That stuff was really cool, and I respect this movie for what it did. I can appreciate that it was trying to do something a little different, but what it was trying to do, not only was it not executed that well, it just wasn't that interesting. Second movie could have been amazing, ends up just being awful. I've talked this movie into the ground. I already have a video called Why Sonic Movie 2 is a Disaster. So, but I love ripping into this thing. So I'm gonna rip into it again. For one, positives. Special effects are really good. The CGI is really impressive throughout all these films, especially the third one. Despite I noticed that movies with smaller budgets have better CGI. And this is one of them. But to get into the issues, one, Sonic. He's just so annoying. His entire character is just to be reference humor. That's it. I remember Ian Waffles talked about this on his review of the second film with the Sonic on with the Silver Ace '01 and on Lavycast, which I've listened to a bit before. He was talking about how the third movie, say whatever you want about Jim Carrey's humor. But at the end of the day, you still can't call the movie totally inconsistent because the humor of Jim Carrey, Eggman and Gerald, is separated from the dramatic stuff. But in the second movie, the humor is placed into the scenes that are supposed to be serious, so it just ends up being totally weird. Also, let's not forget that this movie just is not funny at all. Yeah, Eggman's final lines when it looks like he's about to die is, "Later, hater. I did some things, you did some things. They're good people on both sides." Or he tells Knuckles he has to floss. I mean, are you want me to take that seriously as a villain? The guy was supposed to be scary. I mean, at the end of the movie, I'm just totally rambling. But end of the movie, Robotnik gets the power of the Master Emerald, basically making him a super Eggman, and he kills the Death Egg robot and destroys a bunch of military stuff. And he gets all these lines about how now you'll see what a big a man I can be and all that. But it's just so lame because everything is just stuffed with so much annoying humor. When Sonic tells Knuckles to team up to fight it, and Knuckles says, "We have to aim for the groin," and Sonic says, "Please stop saying that. Just why is that here?" Tails is just an exposition machine who does nothing. He was just knocked out for something like 25 minutes. Imagine how much better it would have been if Sonic and Tails went into the Labyrinth Zone to get the Master Emerald from Knuckles and Robotnik. That would have been pretty good. Or the fact that their entire friendship is based on the fact they beat some guys in a dance battle listening to Uptown Funk. That was just so stupid. What a waste of Colleen O'Shaughnessy. Or the fact that Knuckles is actually really good for the entirety of this movie until the last scene where he's an idiot who says, "I love the base of the balls." What the heck was that supposed to be? Agent Stone goes from being a nothing of a character to being creepily obsessed with Eggman, and it genuinely made me kind of uncomfortable both times I saw that. It's just the wedding stuff. We all hate it. I don't need to say why. Because I'll say this again, I might have said this before, which is that, you know how you could have made this movie better? One, okay, remove all the dumb jokes, make the characters take things more seriously. I'm not sure what you could do for Sonic and Tails to make their bond more believable, but you could do something better than what they did. But also, okay, don't make Knuckles an idiot at the end. Here's something very important for the wedding scene. So just cut out almost all of it. So you want to keep the scene where Tom is talking to the Randall guy saying how, yeah, it's good that you have found your wingman. So it kind of ties into Sonic and Tails and Knuckles at the end. But instead of having it be, oh, Gun Commander says, oh, we knew, to the sister or whatever, we knew that your sister and your brother-in-law know Sonic, and we're looking for them. So we had our troop fall in love with you or something to marry you, and then we could get close to Sonic or something. And it's so stupid. Why couldn't they have just had it be, we know you're related to the guys who have adopted Sonic, so we're secretly in the guests at this wedding. That would be, and you wouldn't have so many scenes randomly cutting back to the wedding. You just have it be, okay, Tom and Maddie say they're going to leave. Might get that one scene with Randall. Maybe. And then later on you show up to the warp ring opens and everyone bursts out. Those changes aren't that big either, but they make the movie so much better. They'd also make it shorter. Why is this movie over 2 hours long? I mean, seriously. I never understand when people say, I sure like that movie that was 2.5 hours. Why do you want to see something that's 2.5 hours? Most movies don't need to be that long. Some do, but most don't, especially not this. I mean, the first and third prove they don't need to be that long. I also cannot stand that the credits song is a hip-hop song. I really hate hip-hop, guys. Yeah, so now it just sounds like I'm tearing to the second movie again, but I think it's just genuinely important to say that, yeah, how do we go from something that was not that good, but was still, I guess, somewhat mostly halfway competent to whatever this is supposed to be. This is just awful. I really do not like this movie. But now let's move into the third one. Finally, be positive because yeah, oh, come on, load picture. Yeah, I genuinely really like the third Sonic movie. I've talked about it multiple times already, so I'll talk about it again in case you didn't see my review, which you should for more detail. Which is that I, as I literally just went over, I hated that second movie. I thought that first one was mediocre. So I was so excited for the third movie, especially after watching both trailers, but I was still thinking, but they let me down so much last time. The exact same people are making this. And the first trailer still had that MCU humor, so I was just thinking, I'm still gonna see this as soon as I can, but they're probably just gonna mess everything up again. No, they didn't. They just made a really good Sonic movie and a really good movie in general. For one, that MCU humor, it's gone. The first movie, that trailer where Team Sonic finally comes across Shadow, and he says, "You're a colorful bunch," and the dramatic music plays, and then the music just cuts away as Knuckles says, "He is much more impressive than the Hedgehog I fought previously." Ugh, really, Knuckles? Said, "Actually, Sonic, I would like to fight him." Which is just so stupid, but in the actual movie, not only does the music not cut away, but more importantly, the line, "He is much more impressive than the Hedgehog I fought previously," which just completely ruins the tone, is in a later scene. They just rearrange the dialogue, I guess make it more comedic, but the actual scene in the movie is taken seriously. In fact, what I like about this movie is that, as unfunny as it is, I laughed once or twice, more like chuckled anyway, the serious stuff is actually taken seriously, and the comedic stuff is put off to the side where it should be. Now, it is definitely a problem when your comedy comes from Jim Carrey, one of the most annoying actors I have ever seen. Seriously. How did he go from being actually a pretty good adaptation of Robotnik to being completely obnoxious to being less obnoxious, but still being really annoying because he has so much screen time? And he finally gets to look like Eggman. He just doesn't act at all like the character. I've discussed it before, I'll say it again. When the movie plays into Gerald Robotnik's insanity, it's actually really good. Like with the lines, "Oh, Ivo, you're no Maria," or, "But Shadow, you have to understand. Maria's life meant nothing unless we kill everyone," or whatever he says in that scene. That's genuinely some really good stuff. But for most of the movie, he's just acting exactly like Eggman, which was part of its plan and all that, but it's just obnoxious. Okay, but I was kind of missing the point of this, which is that, yeah, well, the second movie was super obnoxious and never shut up. The third movie actually takes the time, despite being 12 minutes shorter, to develop the drama and make it interesting. Not only is the action even better, seriously, this movie looks amazing. Don't put much stock into the Oscars, but I still really hope this would at least get nominated for Best Visual Effects. Of course it didn't. Because it's actually a good movie, which means it can't get nominated for anything at these big fancy award shows, but Uh, anyway, just more things I want to mention, like how Agent Stone's weirdo obsession with Eggman is downplayed more so. And it actually clarifies what it's supposed to be, which is just that he wants to be Eggman's friend, but he's only been treated as his assistant. I mean, he asks Tails, "So what do you do as Sonic's assistant?" He says, "I'm not Sonic's assistant. We're all partners. I'm his friend." He says, "You're Eggman's friend, aren't you?" And Stone just says, "Well, yeah, of course." Because he's not his friend. He's just his servant, basically. Or the scene where Sonic, after Super Sonic and Super Shadow's epic Dragon Ball Z fight, which is just amazing. They just crash on the moon, and they just talk about how they've lost their loved ones and their grief, and how revenge is not good, but it doesn't feel as cheesy as, Shadow, revenge is bad. You shouldn't take revenge. He's talking about how the last time I looked at the stars like this was with her. And he says, "I need to take revenge. They took her away from me." I have no idea what the quotes were. I just like this. And Sonic goes about how that's the way I felt when I lost Longclaw, but revenge doesn't change anything. And even though she's gone, the love you shared will always be there. And Shadow just thinks of what Maria told him about how even when the star is gone, its light still shines. How did these movies go from what was describing a little bit ago to this, because this is just phenomenal stuff. Or the fact that Shadow is actually characterized well, because I was worried after the second movie they would do what they did to Knuckles at the end of the second movie, where they just turn him into a joke machine, like they did for every other character in the second movie. But no, Shadow is actually played seriously. But they don't make a million jokes about how edgy he is. He's so over the top, man. But they don't. They actually just play his trauma seriously and actually get you invested in it. I'm sure there are a lot of people who watch this who never played Sonic Adventure 2 or Shadow Generations or Sonic 06 or Red Archie or anything like that. So this is their first introduction to Shadow, and they're getting a really good introduction. They can have a genuine reason to care about Shadow. They get everything important they need to really get invested in this character. And it's so good. Sonic is no longer the reference machine he was in the first two films. He's an actual character with an arc that is actually interesting. His whole anger thing about losing Tom, or I've been pointing out in some reviews that Shadow wants to take revenge because he is obsessed with the fact that they took Maria away from me. Gerald is manipulating him too. He's thinking, I have to kill everyone so I can finally avenge Maria's memory. But the thing is, he's avenging a loved one. So when Sonic is after revenge against Shadow for Tom, he's saying, Sonic, what the heck is wrong with you? Um, your adopted father is dying, and you're not spending your last moments with him. You'd rather beat me up. What's wrong with you? And it's not like it's one of those, haha, Sonic, you're kind of a villain because you don't want to take revenge. It's just what is wrong with you? That's really good stuff. But then it just makes you wonder, yeah, how did we get from Sonic what was something in the second movie? How did we get from, oh great, the Winter Soldier, and I have conquered the base of the balls, to even when the star is gone, its light still shines on the world, and Live and Learn actually playing on the big screen, which should have played longer. Just how? I know Tyson Hess co-produced this movie. That surprised me in the theater when I saw his name on the credits. Or also, they did get a third screenwriter. He might have helped out a bit. And it seems they actually listened to fan feedback because people were not happy with the wedding stuff. But now I want to talk about the Sonic Movie 3 concept art for the post-credit scene, because yeah. So at first we see what looks like Amy doesn't just show up when Sonic's fighting the Metal Sonics. No, she shows up and destroys a giant Metal Sonic that looks like Titan Metal Sonic from Archie. Yeah, this looks even worse. I like that Amy actually looks like Amy, but it's just, I do not like that post-credit scene. Well, these movies haven't. The third movie really gave me a lot of stuff I really enjoyed. I'm still worried they're gonna turn Amy into an annoying, strong female character who's gonna make Sonic look like an idiot. They might not, but who knows anymore. Then again, even though this movie already has a release date, I think considering how they're probably at very early stages of development, who knows, even if they have that idea, they might end up changing it. Then there's a second piece of concept art where Sonic comes across Eggman in a giant robe that makes him look like he's from a Kung Fu Panda movie, standing with Metal Sonic, and he's on a throne. And there are these statues of Greek guys or something holding Eggman drones. So I guess the original post-credit scene was supposed to be Sonic is sucked into an alternate timeline where Robotnik rules the world with Metal Sonic, which actually does sound kind of interesting, but I also hate Jim Carrey's Eggman, as I've made it pretty clear by now, so I really hope he's gone. Please just get rid of him. Make Metal Sonic the villain of the next trilogy, guys. I want to see Neo Metal Sonic and see him transform into a Metal Overlord with what I made of playing on the big screen as he fights Super Sonic and Super Shadow. That would be awesome. We all want it. But yeah, this is pretty interesting concept art. Conclusion. Oh wait, before I get to the conclusion, I want to talk about this concept art one more time. So people are saying, oh, maybe they are gonna bring back Eggman, but I have this to say. One, well, it's true that Jim Carrey is unfortunately open to returning for another one of these. He might not. And two, remember a little bit after the second movie release, they showed some concept art for the post-credit scene showing Shadow's capsule. In the original concept art, it wasn't just Shadow's capsule. We saw the entire room, and what was sitting next to his capsule? Why, the skeleton of Gerald Robotnik. He was supposed to be dead, just like in the games. But no, he actually ended up being in Sonic 3. He was just 110 years old. So, who knows what's going to happen with Robotnik in the next film? Only time will tell, I suppose. So yeah, in conclusion, it's really interesting to me to just see how these movies evolved. Because it's not like they just went from mediocre to good to great, like some people would say, or even they just slowly declined. They went from being just something that exists, I guess, as Shafro's Productions would say, to something that I just cannot stand, to something that I just genuinely really liked. It's amazing to me. So yeah, here's to hoping these movies actually end up being good from now on, because I am riding a real high from Sonic 3. I really enjoyed it, so let's just hope the Shadow spin-off that they're of course going to make, and whatever else comes next for this franchise is good. Um, that's all for now. So, dang. Remember to stay way past cool.